Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk About It with Taylor Nolan. I'm coming to you from kind of the middle of nowhere outside of Calgary in Alberta, on a farm right now, surrounded by goats and llamas. And I am here today at the Alice Sanctuary, and you guys might have seen in the previous episode that I was going to be coming out here, and I came out, and it was just an amazing experience, and decided I was going to come back and talk with the founder, Janneane. And so now we're here today. And Janneane, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking with me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's, I wish so badly that people could see kind of where we are right now, this beautiful place that you've created, a safe place for animals to be and to live, and wondering if you can tell us a little bit about how this got started for you. I think you told me earlier this week you've been here for 5 years now.
Yeah, actually it was April that we, when I say we, it's always like me and the residents.
Yeah.
The Alice Sanctuary itself. We opened ourselves up, I suppose. Mm-hmm. And we just moved here 3 years ago, so it was also our third year anniversary here in our current space. So
yeah. Wow. And right before we started recording, I was like, yeah, okay, founder of the Alice Sanctuary, and you said founder, not owner. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't like the fact that I would never want to consider myself an owner of something that is a little bit more larger than myself. So the way that the Alice Sanctuary actually came about was. I was working in the special needs field as a social worker, and I felt like we weren't really kind of helping individuals achieve their highest potential. I started to do some digging around, and I found a couple of farm sanctuaries that worked with individuals, and then I started to find sanctuaries around us before any of this even started, before any of this even became an idea in my head. And I just wanted to kind of do more. So once I interned for 6 months and really wanted to work with the other sanctuary at that time, but our with my programs and stuff that I wanted to connect with the community, but it didn't come through. So I just decided to start the Alice Sanctuary all on its own.
So you were working as a social worker with a special needs population, and the sanctuaries were partnering in a way to provide some kind of therapeutic support, or was it?
That was the plan. It was the idea. So here in Alberta, we just have a lot of pockets of animal sanctuaries or horse sanctuary. That's where I was doing an internship with, and learning large animal care and fencing, all the things that would actually have to go into a sanctuary, except for Edmund, because it's not my favorite. But yeah, I wanted to work with them because as rescues, when you're rescuing farm animals, you don't really get a lot of support from grants, for instance, even if you are a charity. And what I also want to do is I want to improve the lives of others as humans. I want to see everybody thrive and succeed.
Yeah.
I was going to focus on communities and people populations that needed special help or just needed a little bit more attention. They weren't really getting it. We don't have the funding for it.
Yeah.
It's not as available in rural pockets, things like that. The city has it all, but rural pockets don't. And so I really wanted to kind of provide that. What ended up happening is that I noticed that the Alice Sanctuary basically attracts everybody. So it wasn't just specific. And that's how it has. Well, I guess today it's still growing. So,
yeah. So I guess kind of to back up a little bit in the story of your life, were you did you grow up here, and did you grow up around, I know you're vegan, did you grow up with that kind of a lifestyle, and how you got into working with special needs? How does it make sense that this all came about for you?
Absolutely not. No. This was never a plan. It wasn't something I woke up and my counselors in grade school would say, hey, what do you want to do? I never once said that I wanted to be a volunteer for the rest of my life at a farm animal sanctuary and be its guardian for 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You know what I mean? No, that was never a big plan of mine. However, I think my need to want to be of service, I want to be helpful. I want to make the world around me a better place. Without the arrogance, you know what I mean? I didn't want it to be like that. I wanted to be whatever it needed to be and fill whatever it needed to fill. My background I traveled a great deal. I lived overseas for 7 years. I was a teacher. I've been in social work for over a decade. I worked with youth at risk. I created programs in the community to build on community engagement. Like I've done little pockets of things all over the place, but I think all of those pockets have probably led me to this. So running my own organization, running a not-for-profit. Hi, buddy.
We've got a goat friend visiting us.
You want to add to that, Yoda? I never grew up on farms. I mean, when I was young, like my family, they're farmers, like my aunts and uncles, my grandparents, they were farmers. So we do have that ethic, but it's not like I was born and raised in it. Was never trained in it, I guess, per se, right? Like it wasn't something. Was a city kid. I really just, I loved my motorcycles. You know what I mean? I loved my independence. I loved just being on my own. Yeah. I liked, at one point, not having any responsibility. But I guess that all kind of shifted the one day that I just said I need to be able to do more. And I was vegetarian since I was 15. Okay. I wrote a paper in my social studies class. The only material back then was PETA. Yeah. So that kind of shocked me into making my decision. I actually went quickly vegan, but resources back then were so little. Yeah. And being 15, it's not like my parents knew exactly what to do or my mom knew exactly what to do. So I distinctly remember powdered eggs, really pasty soy milk, which I still love today. And, it's all developed into something greater, right? And we can really appreciate the food that is coming out now. But back then, it wasn't something that was easily accessible. So without being vegan, I went to vegetarian. I stayed vegetarian. Hey, Buck.
Somebody wants their horn scratched.
using your headphones for scratch host. No, Buck, that's not right. That's not okay.
When I posted that the other day, someone was like, they're not trying to scratch their horns. They're just trying to sharpen their horns. And I was like, I don't know.
It might not be sharpened, but they can definitely dull them down by doing that. That's for sure. But he loves having his horns scratched, and he loves having them rubbed and in between there, sharpened in like little points of a knife.
I didn't even know that they had feeling in their
Yep.
in their horns.
Yeah, there's nerves and veins down there. So it wasn't actually until I started to do what I'm doing now that I made that decision to be vegan out of integrity. Okay. Out of like just taking and honoring what I am going to end up doing with working with animals and stuff. And I never really wanted to be one of those people who would end up showing up at a protest and wearing a leather belt, for instance. And I really wanted to make sure that there was integrity behind every single thing I'm doing without question. And then we set the standard for the sanctuary after that we are a plant-based environment. However, we don't start everything we do with we are vegan. We always try to promote kindness, compassion, and love. Yes. But you're making things very, very hard.
There's a lot of like new things around these goats now for them to explore.
And that's why I suggested not bringing your backpack.
Yes. And one thing that I noticed, even like when I pulled up here, was that sunglasses in the goat's mouth. This is honestly my favorite podcast I've ever recorded.
It's a busy one, that's for sure. It's busy.
Yes. But one thing I noticed when I pulled up here is that there were a lot of cows. So you have a few other neighbors around here. And, being that you are vegan, that you have this sanctuary here, but you're also kind of surrounded by factory farms.
And feedlots and... Yeah.
That's got to be...
tough, challenging.
Yeah.
It's very challenging. It is, but... I don't even know like how we can even categorize a lot of the times. I know that at some points, like, all the neighbors' cows have now broken out and they're visiting all my cows. Yeah. They're all over at the fence right now saying hello to everybody. So,
goat in my shirt.
Just all up in your jazz. That's all he's doing. He's like,
I want to snuggle you too, but
let me eat your shirt and everybody will be happy.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it is definitely challenging, but I think at the same time, we open up an awful lot of communication.
Yes.
Right? Like we're not just, oh, look at that. He's just,
are we gonna snuggle?
You are now best friends. There you go. You're best friends.
This little goat is just snuggling next to me now. This is great. This is like, I feel like I'm actually recording like in my apartment with my cat. Like we're just snuggled up, my cat and I, right now. That's what this feels like.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
He came in, he was only about 2 weeks, so he was bottle fed for a good 6 months. He was a little baby. Same with his brothers.
So I want to take a little bit of a break here to share a fantastic resource for listeners who are interested in seeking help and finding a good opportunity for counseling. BetterHelp is a fantastic online counseling resource. They offer licensed professional counselors who are specialized in issues like depression and stress and anxiety, relationships, sleeping, trauma, anger, family conflicts, LGBT matters, self-esteem and grief, and really anything that you're searching for in terms of counseling, you can find on BetterHelp. And they connect you with a professional counselor in a safe and private online environment. So anything that you share there is confidential. And the fact that it's online makes it very convenient. So you can now get help on your own time at your own pace. You can schedule secure video or phone sessions, plus chat and text with your therapist. And if you're not happy with a counselor, you can always just send a request to try a new one at any time with no additional charge. Best of all, it's truly an affordable option. And now for Let's Talk About It listeners, you can get 10% off your first month with discount code TALKABOUTIT. So why not get started today? You can go to betterhelp.com/talkaboutit. Simply fill out a questionnaire to help them assess your needs and get matched with a counselor that you'll love. Again, that's betterhelp.com/talkaboutit. And now we can get back to the show. Okay, we look at like the factory farms behind us, what you're doing here. So during my tour, I learned a little bit about what's happening with some of the animals here and what their backgrounds are. And some of them were like very heartbreaking. I mean, most of them all just in and of itself is sad, which I think is hard to talk about because on one hand, I think people don't want to hear it because they like their bacon or they like their burgers. So they don't necessarily want to make that connection with what their food is and what they're eating and how it's been raised and how it's been taken care of. And then it's kind of the other hand of, you know, people thinking that when you're vegan, you are so much better than everybody else. And
self-righteousness.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you touch on a little bit of that?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
I don't know. So the way that the sanctuary is, this is the one thing that I was very clear about when we started this. Janneane can be very self-righteous back in her day, and it was very uncomfortable. You know, it was uncomfortable for me because eventually you didn't get the responses that you'd really like, and so you tried to get more, and then the frustration and the anger and. When the sanctuary started, it was more like a moment in time, and it wasn't hard. You know, like I had 10 cents to my name. It's not like you know I could go into the bank and go, I need a farm. Like I really depended heavily on everything and everybody around me, and starting to ask questions about can I not, and I received more yeses than I ever did no, and which was great. You know, like I was always afraid to ask for anything, so. You know, if you really want to do something, you feel like you're on purpose with it, then you're going to keep doing it. And every door started to open and started to shine itself. So with the sanctuary itself, it had to be its own entity. It can't be Janneane. That's why I'm always going to be the founder or the conduit of the energy that needed. Like I'm the person, I'm the voice, I'm the runner back and forth, I'm the feed, I'm the hay, I'm all that. I'd find the fundraising, like
everything.
But the stories are told by them. So because the sanctuary has basically become its own entity, it's not me that's attracting anybody. It's what the sanctuary attracts, right? Yeah. So when people show up here, it's their willingness. It's their willingness to come along and hear the stories. So the stories that are told, and yes, they provoke sadness. Yeah. They provoke. That's the point. Yeah. So they can bring on tears, but they can also bring on laughter. So they start to see all of the residents here as individuals.
Yeah. They have so much personality. I mean, even just our little guy here snuggling with me now, so much personality.
His little legs stretched out and, you know, he's just chewing and he's happy. He's very happy with you right now. It's awesome. It's nice to see.
Yeah. And I don't think this is an experience that a lot of people get to have with animals, especially farm animals. And sometimes I even think, you know, I mean, you have some of them as your neighbors now, but like what that must be like for someone who is in that kind of environment, in that factory farming, and not being able to maybe see their individual personalities and
what's wiring. So, you know, from the moment that they're born and ready to receive information, they're receiving the information that what they're doing is okay. And I'm not saying that, you know, everybody's doing a wrong thing. I'm just saying that it took me a long time to wire my head too with discerning what is right and what's wrong. And just because we keep doing it doesn't mean it's the right thing, right? And so that's another thing that I had to understand too. It's like, yeah, but you guys told me that the cows are happy and they love to produce milk and, you know, like all of these things. And so you have to kind of somehow at some point feel like you're standing alone. And not a lot of people are willing or strong enough or have the courage or brave enough to do that. To explore the wilderness of, oh my God, my entire world, my entire life, every single thing that I've been told, I now have to change and realize that I was a part of something that really isn't that great. So
that's a really like hard reality to face. And you started that process at 15 when you decided to be vegan. And I imagine you've been able to kind of create a little bit of a community around that. Do you still have friends that do eat meat?
None of my friends back then were vegetarian. We were 15. I mean, we were more interested in the shoes we were buying rather than the food we were ingesting or why, you know, why it actually is the wrong thing to do, right? So even though I got a great grade on my paper, I didn't persuade anybody from it. You know what I mean? Like the vast majority of my high school are still going to eat meat. So like, you know what I mean? So no, I didn't have a community. I did it all on my own. I stood alone a lot. And so I guess maybe that's what built up the resilience. And just kind of going forward. But, you know, even being a social worker in your background, I think innately you're empathetic, right? So you get, you understand where people are coming from. And so I understand where my journey started from. Therefore, I'm going to have to understand where everybody else's journey from. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I have to put up with anybody's, you know, because I think sometimes people will create the drama or create the argument just based on the arrogance level as opposed to the willingness to have a simple dialogue or a willingness to have a decent conversation. Like, you know, we don't have to, and there's no shame, there's no blame, there's no projection, there's no anger, you know what I mean? Like, you know, there's frustration, sure, and there's struggle, no doubt, but we don't always have to slam our fists on the table. I mean, some of the best conversations I've had are with farmers. Some of the best. You know, and it's amazing to be able to reach and still maintain relationships. You know, afterwards, right? Like, okay, well, we can still have a conversation, you know, whereas I've met a great number of peers that are, nope, it's dead fast and, you know, or whatever. But I don't have that anymore, actually. That's long gone.
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that I felt like very impressed by you and very much admired when I heard that you were working with your community in this way, because I think it can be such that the door and the wall can just go straight up and can be closed immediately once you kind of know that difference is there, and takes a lot to actually face that on, to have those tough conversations. And I'm curious how that's kind of impacted what you're doing here. I mean, I know you said, I believe it was the pigs, some of your pigs that you have now have come from your neighbor.
The one that's in our Quonset at this present moment. Who she just had 8 piglets. Those, they came from my neighbors. Same with Dip over there, who's on her own. She doesn't like it, but we had to remove Mom and put her into a stable condition or a stable stall. So, but yeah, this was, our first year of moving here. My neighbor didn't know what to think. He has 4 kids. He has a wife. He would consider himself a sustainable farmer, not a factory farm, but, a farmer that would consider what he does a better product.
Yes. That he's more connected with the animals, that he's treating them with respect, that it's small.
Feed's different, they're not genetically modified, and so he's trying to do the best he can to provide what, the vast majority of our population is consuming, but healthy. Yeah. If that makes any sense. So
he's very much a part of the kind of maybe farm to table movement of eating more sustainable, ethically growing plants and raising animals.
He's trying, and I think that's his the mentality that he has is that he wants to try to do more. So eventually we had a conversation. In fact, we've dropped this word a few times, vulnerability.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I remember our breakthrough. One day we were standing here. I was standing over there by the horses, large horses, and we were talking about his cows, I think. And I don't know what we were discussing. I think we were just discussing farming and water usage and the environmental impacts of factory farming and animal agriculture and things like this, and what we do over here and everything. He's always been really kind of open-minded with what we do, and and I was just like, we have to be able to work together, Mark. Like you and I have to talk, you know. And he's like, he just paused for 1 second, and you have to understand, like, the attitude is, I need to provide for my family. Yeah. I need to be able to make money. And honestly, I don't want to fail. Yeah. So he just said, he's like, I just don't want to be judged. Yeah. He doesn't want to be judged. And it just dropped all defense. Yeah. Every single defense that he had, and any defense that I might have been feeling, or the anger that I could have, been holding on to because of what he does, and I don't agree with what he's doing, and it's hard to watch, no doubt. Yeah. But it dropped everything, and our relationship has been blossoming since. And so he just showed me a great deal of vulnerability, and he hasn't stopped. Yeah. He'll tell me when I have a concussion today and I can't really do much, or, you know what I mean? Like, whereas before, like, he would never say things like that, and he's by himself, or now he knows he can reach out if he's in trouble. He can call me and say, like, I need your help. Can you come on over? Yeah. Or, I asked him to watch Cowspiracy. He's watched Cowspiracy, and he tells every single person who comes and collects his eggs or anything, go watch Cowspiracy. He's eating far more vegetarian, vegan, more plant-based, even though he has, like you're saying, farm to table. And he has it all at his fingertips if he wants it, but he won't. He would consider himself more vegetarian now. And we're setting up programs where he's going to be building gardens so that our volunteers, or, the group of people who support the sanctuary, will pay him to grow vegetables. And we're kind of getting him set up with a local pub so that they can have local produce in their meals. So this is something that could generate an income for him, where he doesn't have to just rely on animal protein agriculture. Yeah. Let's get into plant protein agriculture. And that's how we actually ended up with his pigs. Is because we want to, he wants to see the best, right? Like, he's already sent a few of them to slaughter. And I asked him one day, I'm like, how does that feel for you? And he's like, not good at all. And I'm like, so can we have your 2 extra girls that you still have here and let them just live here forever? Yeah. We're building more relational. I really see us at some point connecting, and we become an even larger farm animal sanctuary. So
that's so beautiful. And it's I love that you asked him that, how does that make you feel now that, you've spent this time with them, you've raised them, and now you just sent them off to get slaughtered, and what that must be like for them. And even seeing the pigs and just being closer to all of them. I mean, I've watched some of the documentaries, and like I said, I am primarily plant-based, and it is strange because I think throughout our society, Canadian, American, whatever, worldwide, I think there is this disconnection when we're in the grocery store or when we're at a dinner, that we don't connect the animal to the food that we're eating, and it's so uncomfortable.
It is. And that is that's even greater problem. Yeah. So if you've noticed, like, you just said something greatly huge there. So one of the things that we do for our tours is a community potluck. Yeah. It is so vital for me to be able to get people to bring food
and
it's all vegan, sit down, talk to one another, connect with one another. And what I've also found and what I've also wanted to do, and what was a big purpose for the sanctuary, is like, we need connection. Without connection, we're not going to thrive. We need a sense of belonging. Without that, we're not going to feel like we're going to be a part of something larger than ourselves. And what we end up doing is internalizing. We become fearful. We become, that scarcity concept, and then we don't talk to one another. And, go as close as what you have with your family. You're sitting around a table and you're all enjoying a meal together, and most of that meal has been put together by a meat product. How much connection do you have at the table with your family members? So the more disconnect that we put out there, the more it's going to trickle into our community, into our family, into the relationships we have with one another. There's more hatred. Look at our political systems, right? Like, it's an indicator of what the world is facing on a greater problem. Like, we're not just disconnecting from this, and it's becoming more of a problem, and it's ruining our planet, and it's literally ruining our relationships with others as well. It's deeper. It's deeper. You don't just disconnect from one category in life. You disconnect from all categories in life. So
no, I love that. And I think that is very powerful to make that, to kind of zoom out to see how all of that impacts. And it's, coming back to our girl, Brene, the closer you move in, the less you're going to hate, and I think that disconnection will really start to go away the closer we move in. And the unfortunate part about that is that there is so much discomfort in moving closer. If you were to take, a strong bacon lover eater and, be like, okay, you're going to spend even just a few days, with this pig and taking care of it and doing all of that. Like, I would imagine that you just start to feel a little bit different. I mean, if you were to, one of the things that caused me to really kind of make the switch a little bit more started in, I guess it was undergrad, when first, I'm learning more how to cook on my own and becoming more interested in where my food comes from. But then I also did a lot of, there's a kitty running across the field now, and did a lot of work with kitties. So I did a ton of rescue work with cats in inner city Baltimore. And, as I'm helping trap these cats, these feral cats, so we can get them spayed and neutered, so we can get them vaccinated and all of this, and, fostering these like semi-feral kittens to try to get them to be adoptable, all of this, and then thinking that, what really is the difference between me nourishing and taking care of these cats and me like eating a chicken, like, would I do this to a cat if the meat was different, and I think when people even think about that, when we hear about people slaughtering dogs and whatnot in other countries, and how strong of a uproar people get into about that. And it's like, well, what about cows and what about pigs? And it's uncomfortable.
It is. And it's the uncomfortability. And that's why, like you're saying, like, it's just like how to rewire, right? I mean, I distinctly remember, making the connection with, mothers, and realizing like, cows don't just produce milk on demand. Oh, hey, Betsy, can you need a couple of gallons of milk here, so I can sell it and have it in consumption to our to make some money. No, they have to be impregnated. They have to have a baby in order for us to harvest milk, and those babies cannot take the milk, or else, the business owners are not going to receive the income that they are working hard at. Right. So that's my neighbors now trying to catch his cows that have broken out.
Oh, yeah. The horn.
Yeah, the big
truck. How he tries to round them up.
Right, yeah. Because when you have like hundreds of cows, you need a large truck with a large horn instead of just using your bodies and the natural way of moving cows, right? This is our factory farm next door to us.
Yeah.
Our big ranch. They also have like 300 pigs. They have a huge barn with chickens, like they have their own feedlot. Yeah, it's insane.
Like, it's legit factory farm, like where the chickens like don't go outside and they're like in cages, or is it like the one big hall where they're all just...
they're called broilers or meat hens. So, I don't know if they have a layer barn, but
I've seen. I mean, Food Inc. was a great documentary that I think really opened up a lot of people's eyes to factory farming. I remember I would drive through like South Jersey or even, rural Maryland and see those chicken runs and would just make me so sad. I was like, can we do something else?
Yeah. And a lot of these barns now are just like, they're removed from roadsides so people can't see them. And they absolutely have no windows or anything like that. So you can't see inside of them either. So, I mean, if what they were doing was something that they could be proud of, then why are you hiding it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just to me, that's a little shady.
Yeah.
So going back to that whole, that reckoning, okay, I get it. Like, I've just been duped. Now, not only am I mad at myself, and I need to learn how to forgive myself for being duped and not knowing any better, but now I have to realize that, an entire body, a whole political system that is a multi-billion-dollar industry has lied to me.
Yeah. And I'm curious a little bit, like when I was here Tuesday and I was talking with the woman who was giving us the tour, we were looking at the sheep and I was just kind of asking these questions to learn a little bit more about like where you guys would stand on things, because I eat several vegan meals a day. It's rare that I do eat meat. There's some, like I'll eat pizza with cheese on it. That's not vegan. But, I take these small steps towards being full vegan, and I try to look at it less of it being cutting myself off from things or like I'm missing out on all these other things, and instead like opening and expanding just a different area of food. But I think even when we talk about like your neighbor and how he's like, he wants to provide for his family and this is on a small scale, and, do we support those small local farmers who are trying to do that? And when we looked at the sheep, it was like, do we support those small local farmers who are doing this kind of on more of a small scale in a more humane way? And I was asking the tour guide a bit about, kind of what you guys do with the sheep and, of learning, yes, the way that it is typically done in the industry of sheep wool is very harmful and very dangerous and oftentimes very scary for the sheep to even experience. And I didn't even realize that sheep were that friendly. I mean, they just walked right on up to us and wanted to be pet and scratched, and was asking, okay, how would you use this wool? And it was kind of this whole notion of like not wanting to contribute to the industry as one part. But then I'm curious in the other part of that, like, do you find ways to work with the animals and not only give benefits to their lives, but also where they perhaps give like tangible kind of benefits, or I don't even know the word for it.
So self-sustainable small farming, we would consider that humane. It comes with the sticker. It's humane.
Yeah.
They're humanely raised, anything like that. And the same thing with ours. Like, we have sheep, and of course we're going to have to shear them. And so like they have the wool, and what do we do with the wool afterwards? And
because in one sense, when it's summer and it's really hot, then they kind of have to be.
Yep, we have to shear them every year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then
what do we do with the material?
Yeah.
Right. Our idea of all of that is we don't want to encourage the exploitation of the material. There's no reason for us to take their wool and turn it into some sort of product, when we have so many alternatives out there that are cruelty-free.
Yes.
And regardless of it being in a safe space or them being treated well, they're not made for that, and like the purpose of a sheep isn't like they weren't born for humans to use and abuse and exploit. Yeah. So that's just something we would never do. Yeah. Here, right? Even as an artisan, like it'd just be like, well, there's so many other yarns, there's so many other products that look like wool, or, you know what I mean, that you don't really need to be making things out of the material. And I mean, if I had a button for them to stop producing wool, I would. Same with the chickens, please stop producing eggs, I would. Because again, like there's so many alternatives now that we don't really need to be encouraging it. So
and that makes total sense. And I think that's also too where I've considered, with being vegan or vegetarian, even as your neighbor now. I mean, honestly, I can't see him going around with the horn right now, but to just picture that that he's driving around on this big truck trying to like rattle up these cows, is, I don't know, kind of sad. And
it is. It's really sad. They're like what we're discussing, like the total disconnect, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so now you have to move 100 cows from a space that they shouldn't be in. And so you're going to drive around with your massive feed truck and blow your horn at everybody because why? Like, are you too lazy to get out and manage your animals? And when people say, oh, we love our animals, really? Because that distinctly tells
they give
you don't care.
Product and money.
Yeah, you're only wanting them to remove themselves from this, from a place that they're not supposed to be in, right?
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah. And I don't think that the dogs like it either.
No, the dogs are very, it riles up all of our animals for one thing. Like all of our residents get riled up because of it. And they don't know what's going on. We have blind steers and, like we don't need them running around in circles and going through fencing just because, you can't do things in a respectful way of moving your animals, right? Like it's just, I don't know. To me, it's frustrating. That's the kind of stuff that frustrates me. It's like, you could do better, but you're not, right?
Yeah, and like I agree with you on, even when it comes to like being vegetarian, where there are so many other resources out there that we don't necessarily need to be eating animals anymore.
No,
and I guess in my head to better understand and to maybe put myself in the shoes of someone who is very, pro meat eating, is like, I guess unless you were really, back in the day, hunter-gatherer times and like needed to use your sheep's wool, to survive.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah, then in that sense, it makes sense. And I think that's where people, and even maybe in my head a little bit, I'm trying to understand kind of like the black or white all or nothingness of being vegan and the whole lifestyle of where it's like, well, how can we still work with animals in a way that is mutually beneficial in some ways? And I mean, for me, I'm like, it is already mutually beneficial because, we get, I can't believe this neighbor.
I know.
I can't imagine doing that myself.
It's so disrespectful.
Going
and so
around
rude.
just honking at all the cows to try to move them when they're just trying to like graze around and
no harm done.
Yeah.
There's no harm. They're just grazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he just keeps going around in circles, honking his horn at all the cows to get them to move. I don't know.
How do you... This was something I was very, very excited to get to talk to you about today. Because, I mean, talking about all of this, knowing that the factory farm is right there, seeing you with the animals, seeing what you've created here, how in the fuck do you take time to like take care of yourself like emotionally? Because so much of what you're dealing with here is incredibly emotional, and like you care so much clearly, and you do so much. And I mean, you already have a history with social work and whatnot, so I'm sure this isn't foreign to you maybe to be caring for others and prioritizing that service. But how do you take care of you? You just forget about Janneane?
A lot of the times. Yeah. To be honest with you, the sanctuary isn't what drains me. It's that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That drains me. But overall, I mean, like, I love waking up every single morning and watching that sunrise. And, two of my favorite times in the days is sunrise and sunset. And then I say things like that, and I'm like, but then everything else in between.
Yeah.
So I love what I do. I find it really fulfilling, but yes, it's exhausting. I don't get time to myself, and if I do, then I try to spend it with friends, people who really kind of help me with my like mental health. People who are good for you. I don't want to hang around, and I don't want to put myself in situations where I'm going to feel even more drained because of like the social aspect of humans and what they end and the potential of like creating very bad situations. So I try to surround myself with really good, awesome people, and we all thrive together. And I don't get a lot of time. Like, I'm here all the time. It's 7 days a week. I haven't had one single day off for, I think, 6 years now.
Yeah.
But I do the best I can with the time I do get. And then I try to do as much relaxing work as possible. Like Sundays, I have told myself, you're not allowed to pick up a shovel and rake, you know, hang out with the animals for sure, read a book with them, but no work. So, you know, I try to do the what I can do for what I am doing. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because I mean, I don't remember if we mentioned this earlier, but yeah, like everything that happens here is volunteer ran, like
including me.
Yeah. Like if someone else is not here, then it's just you with these, 50, I don't even know how many animals.
We have over 160 now.
Over 160 freaking animals by yourself.
But I've also set it up that it's actually like it's doable and manageable for me, right? So that's one of the most important things that I that has to happen is to set up your environment that works for you. That's you know, it's efficient. The time that you're spending in each area, especially if it's feeding time, then it's efficient. I have a pattern that I follow so that I don't forget things, and so I try to do as much as I can that I'm just I'm not using up too much, and also still getting everything done, and then I'll focus on other bigger projects. Yeah,
and I mean, they all kind of like just chill and like interact with one another. I mean, I was very surprised, like when I first came, that it was like the goats and the llamas and the chickens, they're all just hanging out together, and the sheep, and they're just all buddies. I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes a little while for everybody to integrate well, you know, and to be comfortable with one another.
Especially because some of them are coming from like severely traumatic places and experiences. And I don't know if there's one in particular that you want to share or that's like specifically close to your heart. I've learned a few of their stories, and they're all just...
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. I think like everybody's story here is really, I mean, they're very unique, and of course I hold them very personal, and because I work with every single one of them to regain trust, rebuild. You know, sometimes it takes 2 weeks, sometimes it takes 2 years, and we always are working with that, right? Like that detail of like just rebuilding, and but I mean, like, you have these moments where you just notice that you've just made that connection. Yeah. And from there, you're like, oh, life is going to be zen with you guys now, you know? And like, you know, our goats, they came in and it was a pretty bad situation for them, especially Yoda over there on top of the hill. He lived in my house for like 2 weeks, and we almost lost him 10 times at least. He was super sick, and I don't think I slept for 2 weeks when he was in there. You know, he's pretty tight with me, and we're, you know, you've noticed our relationship. You noticed our relationship with our goats right now, like how close they are. Like all these boys, they were bottle fed. You know, I guess our biggest trauma, I don't even know if we have anything that's compared, like, you know, you can't say one was more traumatic than the other, but
can't compare trauma.
Yeah, like I don't even know where to even go with it, because again, they're so individual. Yeah. And it really, I don't know. Yeah. Every single one of them I have a relationship with, including all the birds. Yeah. You know, like every single one of those birds, and then we have a relationship.
Okay, there's one little chicken guy that is my favorite, and he looks almost like a little cartoon character. And I'm like, I don't know if I should be laughing because you got like really messed up and that's why you look like that, but you are so cute.
He's a silky. So he just naturally looks like a Fraggle.
Yeah, he's just so scraggly and cute. And I'm like, you either really had like the toughest life and I'm like such a bitch for laughing at you, or you're just like such a character.
You know, you definitely go for he's such a character. He's had a fairly decent, like he's a strong boy, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, when I just think back to like my experience with rescue work and like with each animal you develop such a relationship and just that development of trust, and when you finally see that connection is there, like it makes all of it 1,000 times worth it. Yeah. And the fact that you have that with these like animals that are not just cats, but that are like big animals,
big and small. And the best part about it too, and
Bless you.
We didn't talk too much about the people coming in, but I see it with people. Mm-hmm. I see it like when our tours are here, or like any kind of special events, and when we're walking around. And again, we're not exclusive, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't want to just say only certain
vegans
type.
are allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like that. Like what I said, we work on kindness, compassion, and love, and we're open, right? Like we want to talk, we want to heal, we want to see people thrive, we want to see people smile, and feel things, and open that world up. And when I see people make that connection, that too reminds me why I'm doing what I'm doing. So yes, there's an awful lot of emotion and emotional work and spiritual work for sure, but it really does come with it's hard, but also and challenging. But I mean, when you see that, you go, oh yeah, there you go. It's right there.
I mean, even during the tour, we were with Stevie, the pig, who literally just walked straight up to us and just plopped over for us to rub his belly. And I was like, oh, okay. And
such an invite. It's such a vulnerability.
Yeah. And for him to have like such this trust in humans when it's like, you would think, that a pig would want to like stay as far away from a human as possible. It was very emotional. And I mean, I think internally you have to be very careful about what kind of like inner talk occurs, because I know there was a split second in my mind where I was like, how could you fucking even eat a slice of bacon or, anything when you have this interaction? Like, what is wrong with you? How could you do that? And I think it's really important to not shame yourself in that way, because I think that, again, drives the disconnect and drives some of that, like, maybe hatred between people who are, like, gung-ho about meat and people who are vegans, maybe just the perception that we have of one another.
I think that there's just a big difference, and there's a big difference between shame and guilt.
Yes, absolutely.
Renee. Right?
Yeah.
And I say that a lot, too. I have to work with a lot of people in that perspective. Like, you're not a bad person. We've just made bad decisions, but guess what? We get to make better decisions now that we know.
And that it's not your fault. No. I mean, when you think about it, you likely have grown up eating meat your entire life. You've grown up with, it just being a very societally acceptable thing. And again, with that disconnect that's there between the fact that these are animals and also the fact that animals that most people, I mean, you look at this goat is yawning. Oh my God. Wow. That was the cutest thing I have maybe ever seen.
Yeah. I love how they get to express that. Like, Yoda up there stretching.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we're sitting here amongst animals that have been abused, neglected, surrendered, have a lot of trauma base. They didn't know their moms. Like, these guys never knew their moms. They were taken away from their moms from birth. They're lying here with us.
Yeah.
They're
just
they know
out.
That whoever is here is not going to cause them harm.
Yeah.
And like the amount of trust for them to stretch, for them to yawn, for them to sleep by us, right? Like it is extremely, it's special.
Yeah.
It's their language, and we have to learn to listen to that. The deeper we go, the more we're going to feel, the more we're going to see, the more we're going to experience, and the more we're going to share, the more love we're going to share.
Yeah. It's honestly, I honestly, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, you described it so perfectly, and it, like I said at the beginning of this, it feels literally like you're just like in your living room with like your cat. Like, I feel like this goat right here is like our dog, just stretching out in the living room, like just so relaxed and at peace with his life, and it's so beautiful. And yeah, I think it's so hard to wrap your head around, so many things. Even the dog's barking now. It's like,
they like to talk to people who pass by.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started with dog rescue.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, I have 5 dogs now and 8 cats that live in the house.
Yeah.
Overall, we do work with barn ferals and what you did before. But yeah, we have a lot of barn cats here too.
So then, doing the work that you did in social work and being where you're at now, have you had experience in therapy? Do you currently go to any kind of therapy?
Personally?
Yeah.
No.
That's always a question I ask on the podcast. I always ask, I'm like, so have you been in therapy? Are you in therapy?
I am not opposed. Don't get me wrong. I have. Okay, so I deal with a lot of grief.
Yeah.
I lose a lot of my friends. Like, I consider these guys my friends, my family, my loves, my best friends. You know, like everything, right? Because we have such a connection.
Yeah.
So it really does take a huge chunk of my heart every single time. But the one thing that I don't get is time for grief. And we all need time to grieve, whether or not it's a breakup, whether or not it's a loss of a job, whether or not it's something that has, emotionally drained or spiritually drained us. Like, it all leads to physical drainage and everything else. So a couple of years back, I didn't realize like how much work I was putting out there, how much I was doing, and I wasn't taking any time off for myself. And, people were really starting to notice like you're burning out. But even though I was taking care of everybody, I wasn't taking care of me.
Yep.
And I lost some really important pieces, really important parts of my life, and never gave myself an opportunity to grieve. So I don't have the time to run out and make appointments. What I did do, though, is seek out and put out there in the universe that I need help. I need somebody and I need something. And in fact, what I received was a team. I received a team. Yeah. There was a counselor. There was a spiritual healer. We had... I was able to talk to people on the phone. Like all of these processes came out in place. I was able to do some online work, and I took a couple of courses. Yeah. Self-love was a huge part of that.
Read some Brene Brown.
It was just, I was reading and I was intaking, and I gave myself a solid 3 months to heal. Okay. Just do my stuff. Yeah. Do everything out here. I told them, like, you guys don't think I'm leaving you, and I love you, and I'm going to spend all the time I have with you, but right now I really need to focus on me and heal so that I can provide even more, right? And I have to do that. And now what I do every year is just after summertime and getting into fall, I'll set that date, and I need 3 months at least to let go of the summer, because there's an awful lot of connection that comes in, and sometimes that's really heavy for me, and I'm not able to kind of release it. But now I have better tools in place. I know what I need, and I know how to say, like, I just need a day off, and I can't be around people. Which I never really understood before. I didn't understand, like, as an introvert. That's what I need. As a healer, that's what I need. And I just kept giving, and never realizing, like, oh, hey, by the way, self-love means love yourself full so that you can do even more outward, right? You can't just give yourself all the time and not do, because you're just going to, that's it. Yeah. Right?
I call it my cocoon time. I say, I just need to cocoon and like not talk to anybody and just be with myself. Yeah. Sometimes I just put a pair of glasses on and pretend like I'm just inside this goggle. You know what I mean? This is where I am. So. Yeah. Well, I mean, it warms my heart to know that you do kind of prioritize that, maybe not every week or every day, but that you allow yourself those 3 months to be able to kind of put back into your cup because, I mean, you do so much here. You do so much for the community, even just by having this, and like all the people that come out and volunteer, like you're teaching them so much. And it's like, it's really a beautiful community here that you've created, and your heart is like very present, and it shows in all the animals here. And it's just, I mean, I don't know where they would be without you, but I'm very, very glad that they found you and that you have found them, because it's...
they've healed me too.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's all so stinking beautiful, and I wish you were closer to Washington.
I wish you were closer to Alberta.
I'm like, I just want to learn more, and I want to help out as much as I can. And I mean, you guys are outside of Calgary a little bit, so if anyone is in Calgary area, it's only like a 40-minute drive.
Oh, yeah, it's fast.
Yeah, and I mean, how else could people find the sanctuary, if there's ways people can like donate, or how else can people kind of support the sanctuary?
Gosh, there's so many ways, and I'm always grateful for all of it. I mean, the one thing that I love is gratitude, because gratitude leads to more joy. It's work, that's practice. You got to do it every day. Like, I wake up every morning and I do it. Okay, so the way that people can find us is obviously through exposure. So the sharing of stories, what you've done, you know, and people are starting to recognize that we actually exist. It's not like I knew any of us existed before I started any of this, and people were around for like 5 years before I even knew that they were here in Alberta, right? So we really do need to just kind of have, our social media is big. I like to use the platform for great things, and the sanctuary is obviously one of those great things. So exposure is one. We do run solely on donations. So any type of donation is great. We also I love and thrive off of good feelings, positive vibes, healing vibes, love vibes, blessings, prayers, whatever you want to call them, however they might look for individuals. It doesn't matter. It's just as long as you're leading with love and you're passing that love on, we thrive off of that too. We've done an awful lot of healing because of that. We've seen many of our residents come through because of the amount of blessings that come in, right? Donations obviously help us get through a lot of our bills. We have big bills here. So,
well, and I love too that you guys do the tours. And oh my God, if I could take a picture right now of this goat, this
goat Playboy pose
is on the top of the hill and is just posing.
He's just passed out with his leg above his head. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that is fantastic.
That is awesome. Goodness. That's Arwen.
That's some real goat yoga.
Yep. There you go. Where's boy?
But you also do these tours.
Yep, we do the tours.
And I mean, I think
do public and private tours Thursdays and Saturdays. Saturdays are public tours, and they're limited, so it's not like people have to reserve spots for that. So we'll be setting out the dates for that soon. We do events. Our opening day is June 8th. It's usually our biggest fundraiser because we have lots of people who walk through. And it's just like an open. We don't go in with anybody, but people can walk around. We'll have great speakers this year. We'll have probably close to about 25 vending tables. We'll have a food truck. And we don't charge for anything. And so people, it's all about a flow. Coming in, yes, we ask for a donation. But we don't charge for vending tables or anything like that. We just want community to be a part of us, right? And so there's that. We have workshops this year. We're going to be focusing a lot on mental health, in fact.
Amazing.
I really want to help, again, we feel that the community as a whole is starting to shut down, and we don't want to see that. We want to see people starting to open themselves up a little bit. And so we really want to talk about mental health. We really want to empower people. We want to bring in healing tools. So we're going to be doing an awful lot of that over the summertime. We'll have yoga here again. And then we have our music event in August, which we're really excited about too. And
I mean, so much of what you do here is about building community, and so much of community and social support is what helps with our mental health and helps with our connection. And for me, the biggest piece of feeling connected, period, is going back to nature. I mean, sitting here, while it may be on some goat poop, is still this is the grass that the goats ate, and now it's back out here, and it's very connecting, and all of those kind of day-to-day things in life really don't matter anymore. And it is such a grounding thing to be a part of. And I mean, I think there are very small opportunities for people to come really close and move in and get connected with animals who have been neglected, who have been abused, who were in factory farms, and to get up close to that and have that connection, I think is life-changing for people. So I'm so happy that you have this community here, and that you're bringing the actual community around Alberta closer together with this and hosting some of these events here. I'll have those listed in the episode notes for reference for anybody that does want to come and check it out, and even a page just for donation, because I mean, you do all this yourself, and a lot of the animals here too need vet care. And so that's
especially with right now with what's going on with our mom with her new piglets.
So there's just so much, and I mean, I'm so happy to even have some of your time today to talk about this. And I know it's taken you away from the piglets and everything else that needs your attention. So it's been great. It's been helpful. I feel this really helps, right? Laughter helps. Talking about love, talking about things that really matter, talking about things that really uplift. And I just think that stuff like that actually kind of it fills back up.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if I haven't slept for 4 days. I feel great now. I feel amazing.
Yes.
You go for another 4.
No, you needed to sleep.
I needed this. I needed this conversation. So this is great.
Good. Well, thank you so much for chatting. And people can find you at the Alice Sanctuary on Instagram. And there's also a Facebook group where people can sign up to come volunteer, because every day you need people out here helping you with everything that's happening. So I'll put the link to that as well. Thank you so much, and thank you guys for tuning in and listening. And you guys can follow them and check out the episode notes descriptions. Always love reading your reviews on iTunes. If you want to head over there and leave a review and let me know what you're liking about the show. And of course, if you have any questions or topic suggestions, feel free to send an email to ask.letstalkaboutit@gmail.com. And I hope you enjoyed all the lovely farm sounds and learned a few new things from this episode, because I've learned so much, and just it's really great to be out here. This is my favorite episode I've ever recorded.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's good to hear.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys next time.
This podcast is brought to you by Wave Podcast Network. Check out all of our shows, including the Brain Candy Podcast, I Don't Get It, Coffee Convos, and Let's Talk About It.